What's up YouTube, welcome back to another video on my channel Skotrix, and today as you can see we are back on NBA 2K21 Next Gen, but we're not actually on the game. We're going to be back on this chart right here, ranking all of the best shooting badges today. Now if you guys don't know, yesterday I ranked all of the best finishing badges, and tomorrow I'll do playmaking, the day after that will be defense, and then the day after that I'll rank every single badge in NBA 2K21 Next Gen. But today, as I said, is going to be these shooting badges, and I'm going to be ranking them here from tier S, which is the best, all the way down to tier F, which is the worst. And I'm going to be putting every single badge into one of these categories, giving a brief explanation of why I'm putting it there, and also telling you what the badges do in case you don't know what the badges do, especially for some of the new badges for next gen. So now without any further ado, let's get right into the video here. Alright, so first off, the first badge that we have right here is Antifreeze, and this is one of the new badges, and I think this is actually one of the worst new badges. I'm going to put this one all the way down to the E category. The only way that I really see there being a use for this badge is if you're really new to the game, you really don't know how to shoot, you're shooting really terrible, and you're taking really stupid shots or something. Otherwise, there's really no point in putting this badge on. What it does is it reduces the likelihood of getting cold and losing takeover after taking poor shots. So like I said, unless you're taking a ton of poor shots, you really shouldn't need this badge at all. It's basically useless and you could skip it. You don't need to put it on at all for most builds. Now next up we have Blinders right here, and this is a decent badge. It's kind of similar to Deadeye, but instead of affecting you when defenders are closing out in front of you, it affects when they're closing out from the side. So if you're shooting from the corner or something and somebody's coming from the wing jumping to contest you, this badge will help out to reduce the likelihood of them being able to successfully make the shot miss by contesting it. So I'm going to put this badge into the C category. It's a decent shooting badge, but I wouldn't consider putting it on unless you have at least probably 20 shooting badges, just because it's one of those badges that is good, but it's not as important as other badges. So even though it's not a bad badge, I definitely couldn't see you wanting to put this badge on unless you have at least 20 shooting badges, so that you can get all of the more important badges before you get this one. But that's Blinders right there. Next up we have Catch and Shoot, and I should mention all of the new badges are going to be gold, and all of the returning badges from 2K21 current gen are going to be Hall of Fame. That's just because I couldn't find the images for these badges in Hall of Fame, so I had to crop them out in gold. But still, it doesn't matter too much, just thought I would mention that. And for Catch and Shoot right here, I'm going to put this into the B category. This is a pretty good badge, not an amazing badge, but pretty good, especially if you're going to be shooting obviously off the catch and shoot more. If you're like an ISO god and you dribble for 20 seconds and then shoot, this badge is useless for you. But if you're an off-ball player, you're definitely going to want to invest in this badge, and with so many people playing in the Rec and the 5v5 Pro-Am right now, this badge is looking really good, because obviously there's 5 players, so there's 4 players off-ball. There's way more of a likelihood that you're going to be shooting off-ball than you're going to be shooting on-ball. So Catch and Shoot is a pretty good badge, definitely a must-have badge for big men. If you're a guard, not so much. But now next up we have Circus 3s right here, and I'm going to put Circus 3s also down to the E category. This badge sounds cool, but it's really a pretty bad badge. Basically what it does is it gives you a boost on step back threes that are taken off the dribble. So that's a pretty specific shot, and honestly you shouldn't be taking too many step back threes off the dribble unless you really feel like you want to channel your inner Ticino. I really don't see the point in having this badge. It seems pretty useless for 99% of builds, and unless you're shooting step back threes, basically useless for you. So I don't recommend this badge basically under any circumstances. And next up we have Clutch Shooter. I'm going to put Clutch Shooter also into the C category. Similar to Blinders, it is a decent badge, but I just cannot see the situation where you would put Clutch Shooter on over some more important shooting badges. That's why it goes into the C category, not because it's a bad badge, just because there's so many more important badges I think that you could put on instead. But if you don't know what Clutch Shooter does, basically it just increases your chances of making shots at the ends of games. So like in clutch moments, with like a few minutes left in the fourth quarter or into overtime, or if you're in a park game when the score is getting pretty high up there, Clutch Shooter will activate and help you make more shots, but it doesn't do anything for the earlier parts of the game. So decent badge, but not amazing. Definitely a C tier badge right there. And next up we have Corner Specialist. I'm going to put Corner Specialist into the B category. It could go into the A category, kind of similar to Catch and Shoot though, so I'm going to put it into the B category here. And basically what this badge does is it increases the likelihood of you being able to make shots from the corner three-pointer. This badge does not help mid-ranges this year, only three-pointers. So if you think it's going to be helping you with shooting fadeaway mid-ranges or whatever, it's not. It only helps on three-pointers in the corner. Whether you're shooting off the dribble or off the catch and shoot, it'll help anywhere three-point in the corner. So if that's where you find yourself shooting a lot, this is a badge you probably want to invest into. If you don't find yourself shooting there, then you probably can ignore this badge. but that's corner specialist right there. Now Deadeye, and this badge right here that I have for Deadeye is not actually how Deadeye looks in the game. It's actually like a skull with a little bullseye thing on it, but for the sake of this video, this badge right here is Deadeye, and I'm going to put Deadeye into the B category as well. I think it's slightly better than Blinders, and I think it's right on par with these two badges right here. And I think most people probably know what Deadeye does. It decreases the penalty that you get when a closing out defender contests your shot. So if the defender's already in your face when you shoot, Deadeye won't help you, but if you go up to shoot and the defender's closing out as you're shooting, Deadeye will help you have a higher chance of making that shot. So it's a decent badge. If you find yourself shooting like maybe 10 to 15% contested shots a lot where people are just closing out as you're shooting, definitely invest in Deadeye. If not, you can ignore it. But next up we have deep threes right here, and I'm going to put deep threes into the S category. And I'll explain why. This badge isn't as good as a lot of people think, because you can definitely hit deep threes without this badge. But I mean, any badge like this that extends your range is pretty important. So deep threes is an S category badge, and you're definitely going to want to have it on for basically any shooting build in the game. And now next up we have difficult shots, and I'm going to put difficult shots into the D category. This badge is okay, but it's really not that good unless you're shooting a lot of fadeaways, and it only works from the mid-range this year. I guess since they added Circus 3s, they put difficult shots, so it only works if you're shooting mid-ranges. So it will not help with three-pointers, it will not help with close shots, but if you're shooting mid-ranges where you're shooting a lot of fadeaways, step-backs, pull-ups, spins, hop shots, whatever you're shooting, difficult shots will give you a significant boost on those type of shots. So yeah, that might be a badge that you want to invest into if you're a Ticino type of player, but otherwise you could basically ignore it. Any big man build, anything like that can basically ignore this badge. Pretty much useless if you can even get it. And next up right here, we have Fade Ace, and I'm also going to put Fade Ace into the D category. Again, this is one of these badges that you can put on. You'll know if you need it, obviously. If you shoot a lot of post fadeaways, you're going to want Fade Ace, because that's what it does. It boosts post fadeaways taken from any distance. So if you're somebody who shoots post fades, then you're obviously definitely going to want this badge. If you're not somebody who shoots post fades, you could definitely ignore this badge. It doesn't help with like shot creator type of fadeaways where you're like running off to the side and you just shoot a fadeaway. That would be difficult shots that helps with that. This only helps with post fades. So yeah, that's Fade Ace right there. And next up we have Green Machine. I'm going to put Green Machine into the C category. It could even be in the D or the E category, but hear me out. I know a lot of people love this badge. They say it's one of the best badges in the game. I disagree. I did a full video on Green Machine on NBA 2K21 current gen, and I broke down all the statistics for the badge and also the practical application for this badge, and all of those principles still apply for this year, and it makes this a mediocre badge, even though a lot of people swear it's one of the best badges in the game. And I've explained a lot in the past why Green Machine isn't amazing, but I'll explain it again really quickly. Basically, you have to hit 2 greens to even activate the Green Machine boost. So you have to hit 2 consecutive greens, and then it will give you a slight boost on every shot after that, gives you a slight higher chance of making a green. But if you miss, the entire boost is gone until you get 2 greens in a row again. So if you're only taking 3 or 4 shots a game, Green Machine is basically useless for you. If you're taking like 10 shots a game, let's say you're playing 2s or 3s and you're the guard, that's the only situation where I could see Green Machine being valuable, because you need to take 2 shots to activate it, and then it activates on the 3rd. So if you're taking 3 shots a game, you'll maybe get it activated on the 3rd shot, only if you green the first 2. So I mean, that really doesn't seem worth it. There's so many better badges you can invest into, but if you're a guard that shoots like 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game, and you're greening pretty consistently, like 70% or more of your shots are greens, then you could definitely invest in a Green Machine, get it onto Gold or Hall of Fame. But otherwise, for like 80% of builds, I would say Green Machine is completely useless, especially because the boost it gives isn't even as big as most people think. But next up we have Hotshot right here. I'm also going to put Hotshot into the S category, and I'll explain why. What this badge does is it gives an additional boost towards takeover progression after making jump shots. So if you have a shooting takeover, whether spot of precision or limitless range, either one, you're definitely going to want this badge, because you can get your takeover after making like 2 shots. Like, it's so fast. This badge helps out so much, and it really is a fire badge to have for any shooter. Super important, helps you get your takeovers super fast. And yeah, all of these new badges that they added, like Hotshot, they have one for defense, playmaking, and also finishing. They're all really good, especially if you have the takeover that correlates with the badge that you have. So if you have the finishing takeover, you're going to want the finishing badge that gives the extra takeover boost. If you have the shooting takeover, you're going to want Hotshot so that you can get your shooting takeover super fast. And same thing with playmaking and defense. So this badge is really good, especially if you have a shooting takeover. Even if you don't, it's still a decent badge. But next up we have Hot Zone Hunter, and Hot Zone Hunter is also going to be into the S category right here. This is a really good badge as long as you have hot zones. If you don't have hot zones, obviously it's basically useless. but most people do have hot zones in the park, so Hot Zone Hunter is going to be an S category badge, and it does give a pretty good shooting boost from anywhere where you have hot zones on top of the boost that you already get from having hot zones in that spot. So Hot Zone Hunter, really good badge, definitely recommend it for any shooting build that can get it and that does have hot zones. And next up we have Ice and Veins right here. I mean, Ice and Veins is one of those badges that it could go up high, it could go down low. It really depends on your playstyle, what modes you play, and what your free throw rating is, but I'll just put it into the E category, not because it's terrible, just because if you're playing like the Rec or Pro Am 5v5 or something where you have free throws where you have to shoot and you have a low free throw rating, then you're probably going to want to invest in this badge. But remember, it doesn't help on all free throws, it only helps on free throws taken in the second half of a close game or overtime periods, and it gives you a slight boost as well as increasing the timing window for free throws. The window that you can hit a green in and that you can make the shot in becomes larger. So it is a decent badge if you're playing a lot of Rec right now or something to get some rep. I mean, you could put this on, especially if you're having trouble shooting free throws, but otherwise I would ignore it. For park players, this badge is absolutely useless and completely ignore it. Next up right here we have Rhythm Shooter, and I'm going to put Rhythm Shooter into the D category. It is an okay badge, but again, it only works for very specific builds. Basically what this does is it increases the chance of a made shot after sizing up your opponent with dribble moves. So if you're like an ISO god that's doing dribble moves for 20 seconds and then shooting, you're definitely going to want to put this badge on, especially if you have a lot of shooting badges. You're definitely going to want to put Rhythm Shooter on. But if you're not somebody who just dribbles for the whole possession, then you're really probably not going to need Rhythm Shooter. If you're a big man or a wing, you're really not going to need it. It's more of a guard badge, and it's more of a second tier guard badge at that, but it is decent. It is a badge that I would definitely recommend putting on for specific builds where you find yourself dribbling a lot and then shooting. Maybe if you're like an ISO build, or if you just run back and forth hitting screens and do some dribble moves or whatever, then you could put it on. Otherwise, I would ignore it. But next we have Set Shooter, and this is kind of the opposite of Rhythm Shooter. This basically just gives you a shot bonus after standing still before taking a jump shot. So if you're like a corner sitting big man or something, you're definitely going to want to put this badge on. Even if you're a guard, maybe you might want to put this badge on. I'll put it in the C category right here, but it is a decent badge. It's not terrible. And if you find yourself having time to stand still before you take a jump shot, you could put this badge on. But a lot of the times people don't really have time to stand still before they take a jump shot in this game, because somebody's coming, closing out on you, trying to contest your shot, trying to block your shot. So most of the time this badge isn't that useful, but it is okay in certain situations. If you have time to set your feet really good before you shoot, then it does give a solid boost on your jump shots right there. And next up we have Slithery Off Ball. I'm going to put this down into the F category, and the reason I'm putting it in the F category is because it's basically useless as a shooting badge. It's more of a finishing badge, to be honest, and even at that, it's not as good as a finishing badge as it was in 2K21 current gen or 2K20, because there's contact alley-oops. Now basically what this badge did is people who didn't have any shooting and only had a lot of finishing would put this badge on because it helped them get by people when they were cutting to the rim to catch alley-oops, since you couldn't do contact alley-oops at all. But now that contact alley-oops are in the game, that's really not as big of a problem. I mean, if you're really only a finisher and you have no shooting in your build at all, then I would recommend putting this badge on, but I would assume most people who are only finishers wouldn't even be watching this video in the first place. So if you're a shooter, this badge is basically useless for you, and it's not worth taking down any other shooting badges to put this on to help you finish, especially with contact alley-oops being as good as they are in the game right now. So that's Slithery Off Ball, terrible shooting badge, but it has its place really more as a finishing badge. But yeah, now we're on to Sniper right here, and Sniper is a super difficult badge to rank. Basically what this does is if you shoot a jump shot while using your stick to aim the jump shot instead of using square or whatever, X if you're on Xbox, then you will receive a boost when aiming correctly. So it's basically like Green Machine, but for aiming your stick, and you don't have to make 2 greens before this badge activates. So it's a decent badge, but only if you aim your stick. I'll put it into the A category, but if you don't use your stick to aim, don't put this badge on because it's completely useless for you. I'm just putting it in the A category because really this is pretty empty. Otherwise I would probably put it in the B category. It's really in between these two, but again, that's only if you use your stick to aim. Otherwise it's useless, but if you do use your stick to aim, it's a pretty essential badge. So next up right here we have Stop and Pop, and basically what this badge does is it increases your shot rating on standstill 3-pointers after dribbling, and I really think this is a better version of some of the other ISO badges that you can get in this game. So I'm going to put it into the A category because when you're dribbling, usually you're not going to shoot off the dribble and shoot like a fadeaway or some sort of crazy shot. usually you're gonna stop and then shoot, so this badge helps with those type of shots, and it really is one of the most valuable badges for any dribbling build, any ISO build, really any guard build to be honest, and maybe some wing builds or some big man builds as well. Stop and pop is definitely a really good badge in this game, and I'm gonna put it into the A category right here. But remember, it only helps for 3-pointers, it does not help for mid-ranges, so just keep that in mind when you're deciding if you want to put this badge on. But next up we have tireless shooter right here. I'm gonna put tireless shooter into the B category. If you find yourself shooting a lot of shots when you're tired, maybe you're a guard or you just dribble a lot, or you just have really low stamina on your build for whatever reason, then you could definitely put tireless shooter on. Otherwise, it's not too big of a deal if you're a big man or a wing, because usually you have stamina when you're shooting, so you really won't need this badge. But if you're a guard where you shoot with low stamina a lot, this is definitely a good badge. I recommend getting it onto gold or Hall of Fame. And for the last badge right here, we have volume shooter, and I'm also going to put volume shooter into the B category right here. I think it's right on par with tireless shooter, Deadeye, catch and shoot, and corner specialist, all these badges. And I think it is a better version of Green Machine, to be honest, because you don't even have to make the shots for this badge to activate. You do have to shoot a lot though, but you have to shoot a lot for Green Machine to even be worth it anyways. So I think volume shooter is definitely a better badge if you find yourself shooting a lot through the course of a game. If you don't shoot a lot, obviously you don't need this badge, but if you're a build that does shoot a lot, you're for sure gonna want it as high as you could get it. So yeah, there we go. That is the best shooting badges ranked in NBA 2K21 Next Gen. This is all the shooting badges right here. There is 21, and remember, if you have 21 shooting badges on your build that you can possibly get, it only shows 20 on the screen. So to see volume shooter, you have to scroll down a little bit, and the build or the badge screen will go down and show you volume shooter. But yeah, I think most people have probably figured that out already. But anyways, that's gonna be it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoy. Make sure you go follow my Twitch, link is in the description. But yeah, that's it. Alright, peace. Playmaking and defense come in the next couple days. Make sure you sub. Peace.